Yang Yi was about to hide himself once he entered the hall. However, a figure suddenly flashed over from afar. The figure seemed quite strange as it seemed to be flickering and would constantly vanish after moving a certain distance. Both he and the figure were only a few hundred meters apart, but the figure merely used less than half a breath of time to arrive in front of him. To be more precise, the figure wanted to charge out of the door, which was just about to close, but his arrival had forcefully stopped the figure from leaving. Moreover, the figure had just stopped when it suddenly stretched out its hand and clawed at him. A strand of strange energy surged out, and it instantly caused the space in front of Yang Yi to warp. Yang Yi was shocked by this, because he actually felt like both his soul and blood were about to leave his body. It was extremely shocking. Yang Yi didn't dare act carelessly. He hurriedly calmed himself, focused, and raised mental barriers within his mind. At the same time, he clenched his right hand and smashed it forward. Bang! A muffled bang resounded, and then Yang Yi felt much better. He raised his head to look at the figure. The figure before him was quite strange because the figure seemed like a shadow. It was completely pitch black and extremely thin, just like a shadow. Eh? The black shadow exclaimed softly and was about to attack once more. However, the door was suddenly opened, and then two middle-aged men appeared before them. How dare you? Who are the two of you? One of them wasn't even able to finish speaking when a red glow suddenly appeared before him, and then his voice stopped abruptly. After that, Yang Yi watched with a solemn gaze as the middle-aged man's figure was sliced apart into over 1,000 pieces and blood sprayed out from within him. The Tao Order. You're from the Tao Order. You. The remaining middle-aged man hadn't even finished speaking when his figure was sliced apart just like the other middle-aged man, and it was an extremely bloody scene. The Tao Order. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. He'd heard of this sect from Fan Meng. There were 5 platinum sects in Pine Prefecture, and they were the Sky Divine Hall, the Endless Devil Sect, the Ocean of Clouds Academy, the Ancient Sword School, and the Tao Order. These 5 powers controlled countless sects and clans throughout Pine Prefecture, and just a single order from them could shake the entire prefecture. According to Fan Meng, the Endless Devil Sect and Sky Divine Hall were the strongest amongst the 5 sections. The Ocean of Clouds Academy was the most aloof and mysterious because the disciples of all powers could enter it to learn and cultivate. It could be said that all the other 4 powers had relationships with the Ocean of Clouds Academy, and it didn't interfere in the fights between the 5 great powers. So, it had the most aloof status. The Ancient Sword School was the sect which others feared to offend the most. Because while it had comparatively fewer members, all of them were top-rate and extremely powerful. Moreover, it had an ancient sword from outer space that even the Endless Devil Sect and Sky Divine Hall feared. As for the Tao Order, it was the most terrifying power amongst the 5 great powers. If the Ancient Sword School was the sect which others feared to offend the most, then the Tao Order was the sect which they couldn't afford to offend at all. Because the Tao Order was both upright and evil at the same time, and it was the cruelest. It slaughtered entire families for the slightest disagreements, and it could be said to be an even greater devil than the Endless Devil Sect. Yang Yi remembered something that Fan Meng had told him. Yang Yi, if you encounter someone from the Tao Order, then you must not offend that person. Run as far as you can. Yang Yi glanced at the black shadow and didn't launch another attack. It wasn't that he feared trouble, he just didn't want to cause trouble for himself. The black shadow had clearly come for the monkey wine, and it was obvious that the black shadow had succeeded. Unless he killed the black shadow, it was impossible for him to obtain the monkey wine from the black shadow with the strength that the black shadow possessed. Besides that, unless he paid quite a heavy price, it would be utterly impossible for him to kill the black shadow with the strength he possessed right now. The black shadow walked over to the door, and then suddenly stopped upon arriving before it. After that, a jar made of white jade appeared before the black shadow. You came for the monkey wine as well? It was the voice of a woman, and it carried a mocking tone. Yang Yi nodded. The woman said, I'll put it right here. Do you dare to take it? Besides a mocking tone, her voice even carried a trace of ridicule. Yang Yi was stunned. As expected, all men are trash, and they deserve She intended to say something, but Yang Yi had suddenly vanished on the spot. At the same time, the jar in front of her had vanished. This time it was the woman who was stunned. An instant later, she suddenly said, "How interesting! Someone actually dared to fight for something with my Tao order. How truly interesting!" As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished on the spot. Only an idiot wouldn't take it. Yang Yi dashed off after he took the jar. At this moment, he was truly overjoyed because he'd intended to give up. After all, she was a high-rank Exalt Realm expert, but her strength was extremely shocking and was much stronger than Ling Xing. But he hadn't imagined that she would actually put the jar out there and ask him to take it. Yang Yi had never imagined that something great like this would actually occur to him. Right when Yang Yi and the woman fled out the door, countless demon beasts charged towards them, and many were even at the Exalt Realm. However, Yang Yi didn't fight them to dead. He just rose his speed to its limits and flashed past them. While he couldn't utilize his profound energy, his physical strength wasn't inferior to a Monarch Realm expert. So, even the speed he gained from his physical strength far surpassed those Exalt Realm demon beasts. But he wasn't able to shake off the women. She was like a shadow that followed closely behind him and was only around 20 m away. Roar! Suddenly, a furious howl resounded from the sky, and then a ray of white light shot over from the horizon. The Spirit Ape King. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched. His figure turned swiftly before he stomped his right foot on the ground, and he relied on the counterforce to shoot explosively towards the right. At the same time, he took out the jar of monkey wine, opened it, and started gulping it down. It would only truly belong to him once it was in his stomach. Otherwise, it was very likely to become someone else's. So, Yang Yi decisively started to drink it. As soon as it entered his mouth, Yang Yi felt his throat and stomach burn as a strand of burning energy appeared within him. After that, the burning energy started to burn the internal organs within him. However, it was simply nothing to someone like him who'd suffered being burned by the nether ghost flame. Yang Yi had only drunk a few mouthfuls when he noticed huge amounts of violet energy being produced endlessly within him. This made him feel overjoyed, and then he started gulping down even more. "I'll annihilate your entire family." The woman's ferocious roar resounded from afar. "Human, I'll burn your bones and scatter your ashes." Ah! The Spirit Ape King's eyes almost split apart from rage when he saw Yang Yi start gulping the monkey wine down, and his eyes had turned crimson red. The wine was something he'd brewed over the course of dozens of years, and utilized countless treasures to brew. Even the Spirit Ape King himself was usually unwilling to take a single mouthful, yet now Yang Yi was gulping it down like water. So, how could he endure it? Thus, the Spirit Ape King roared furiously without end, and his voice was like muffled thunderclaps that shook the boundless mountain range. Roar! Roar! The furious roars of countless demon beasts resounded throughout the mountain range, and then the mountains started quaking as countless demon beasts rushed madly in Yang Ye's direction from all over the mountain range. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched because he noticed a few extremely powerful auras rushing over from different directions. All of them were at the Monarch Realm at least. Of course, that wasn't the worst. The worst was that he noticed he actually felt slightly dizzy. Moreover, his body felt like it was burning up from within. Am I getting drunk? Yang Yi didn't dare drink more. He hurriedly put the jar away, and then he circulated the energy within him to charge into the next rank of cultivation. Yang Yi faced no difficulty and instantly advanced into the mid-rank of the Exalt Realm. Moreover, more and more violet profound energy was being formed within him, and he showed signs of charging into the high rank of the Exalt Realm. However, he noticed an even more severe problem. It wasn't just his head that felt dizzy. Even his vision had actually started to warp, and he felt like flames of lust were burning up within him. What the fuck is going on? Yang Ye's expression changed drastically when he noticed the state his body was in. Roar! Roar! Meanwhile, two colossi suddenly appeared on his left and right, and then smashed down towards him like two hills. He didn't know what was wrong with his body, so how could he dare to let himself become locked in battle with them? He immediately shouted, "Horizon Warp!" As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into an afterimage that shot towards the distance. The women didn't hesitate to chase after him, and the Spirit Ape King was about to do the same as well. Suddenly, the Spirit Ape King's expression changed drastically, and he roared with fury, "Human! Fucking stop! You can't go there! You can't fucking go there!" At this moment, there was cold sweat all over his face, and there was even terror in his eyes. It was the same for the other demon beasts around him. How could Yang Yi possibly listen to him? Not only did Yang Yi refuse to stop, he even sped up to his limits. All he knew was that he had to shake off both the woman and the Spirit Ape King's group. Otherwise, he would definitely die a graveless death. The Spirit Ape King roared furiously, "Human! That's the forbidden area of the demon race of Broken Sky Mountain Range. If you enter that place, then we'll never stop until we kill you. Even if you're from one of the 5 great powers." The woman stopped when she heard the Spirit Ape King. While there were no demon kings on Broken Sky Mountain Range, there were demon commanders. Moreover, there were more than one of them here. While the Tao Order didn't fear them, she still didn't dare go forward. Because not to mention her, even the entire Tao Order didn't dare cause a war between the human race and the demon race. Of course, a war would definitely not erupt between the two races. However, if the situation between them became tense because of her, then she would definitely be sacrificed. She raised her head to look at Yang Yi. However, she noticed that Yang Yi didn't stop and had even sped up. Meanwhile, the Spirit Ape King stopped, and he was horrified when he saw Yang Yi grow faster. "Human! Quickly stop. I won't kill you. I'll give the wine to you. Just fucking stop right now. Do you hear me? I'm begging you." At this moment, the Spirit Ape King was on the verge of tears. However, Yang Yi had vanished from his field of vision. At this moment, Yang Ye's consciousness was quite blurry, so he hadn't heard the Spirit Ape King. But even if he had, his character wouldn't have allowed him to stop. The Spirit Ape King and the others watched as Yang Yi charged into a gorge that was filled with mist. The Spirit Ape King fell weakly to the ground when he witnessed this scene, and his eyes were filled with terror. The other demon beasts around him were in the same state. As for the comparatively weaker demon beasts, they started to howl with extreme sorrow. The woman's eyelids twitched when she witnessed this scene. She knew that it might become a serious issue. So, she didn't dare stay any longer, and her figure shook slightly before it vanished on the spot. However, the Spirit Ape King and the other demon generals paid no attention to her. At this moment, Yang Yi felt like his entire body was on fire, especially the flames of lust within him. It made even his mind become clouded. Yang Yi swiftly bit the tip of his tongue, and the sharp pain he felt allowed his mind to clear up slightly. "No, I must find a safe place to recuperate," Yang Yi thought as he dashed. He knew that while the energy created by the monkey wine couldn't destroy his body, the violet energy within him could definitely cause unpredictable damage to his body, especially the flames of lust. If he didn't do something about it, then he might die from it. After he decided, Yang Yi sped up once more. Bang! Suddenly, Yang Yi felt pain come from his head while his figure was blasted flying. Once he got up, Yang Yi bit the tip of his tongue again, and he glanced at the surroundings once his mind cleared up slightly. He noticed that an energy barrier stood before him. Yang Yi was afraid that the Spirit Ape King and the other demon beasts would catch up, so he charged forward decisively. At the same time, he flipped his palm. An array of light shot forward and blasted against the barrier. The energy from his sword dispersed, yet the energy barrier wasn't even shaken. Yang Ye's pupils constricted slightly, and then a cold glow flashed through his eyes. He flashed over to the barrier, and he slowly stabbed his sword against the barrier. A ruthless expression flashed through Yang Ye's eyes when the sword came into contact with it, and he utilized the decay laws he possessed. He'd only just utilized it when he felt that all the profound energy within him had instantly vanished without a trace. At the same time, he even felt that his newly repaired body had split open once more. Yang Yi was astounded. He'd never imagined that utilizing the energy of the laws would actually cause him to suffer such severe backlash. At this moment, Yang Yi knew that his current cultivation and body were still too weak. Regardless of whether it was his sword intent, sword domain, sword techniques, or the decay laws, all of them needed his body to support them. However, his body's cultivation realm was already low, and coupled with the injuries throughout his body, he was utterly incapable of enduring the utilization of powerful energy. I must restore my meridians as soon as possible. Yang Yi took a deep breath and restrained his thoughts, and then he looked at the barrier before him. At this moment, it was trembling violently, and it was growing thinner and thinner. A ferocious expression flashed through his eyes as he took his sword in both hands and spun it. Bang! The barrier instantly exploded into pieces, and a powerful wave of energy swept out and blasted Yang Yi over 1 kilometer away. Who did this? At the moment the barrier shattered, the roar of a woman that carried boundless rage suddenly resounded throughout the gorge. Besides boundless rage, that voice was even slightly hysterical, ferocious, and filled with madness. It simply caused one's heart to shudder with fear upon hearing it. Outside the gorge, the spirit ape king and the other demon beasts instantly turned pale when they heard that voice, and they fell weakly to the ground. Besides terror, there was deep sorrow in their eyes. Rumble! Suddenly, jet black clouds covered the sky while numerous thick black clouds appeared in the sky above the gorge. Crackle! A bolt of lightning emerged from the black cloud and tore through the sky as it descended towards the gorge. Bang! The lightning struck the ground, and the entire gorge shook. Moreover, the shock surged through the mountain range and caused the homes of countless demon beasts to quake as well. Awe! A seemingly miserable shrill cry resounded within the gorge. Meanwhile, another bolt of lightning descended from the jet black clouds in the sky. Yang Yi was flabbergasted by this scene, because the lightning was so terrifying that it wasn't inferior to the divine lightning of obliteration which he'd faced that day. Someone is overcoming their tribulation here? Such a thought had appeared in Yang Ye's mind. However, he didn't have the mood to pay any attention to it, because the state of his body was severe to an extremely terrifying degree. He didn't dare move about at random. He just sat cross-legged on the ground, focused, and then started to suppress the flames of lust within him. Lightning descended in succession from the clouds in the sky. Once the 9th bolt descended, the jet black clouds finally dispersed from the sky, and the gorge was now an expanse of flat ground. As for Yang Yi, he was still seated cross-legged at the side with his eyes closed tightly. The remaining force contained within the lightning wasn't able to affect him at all. After all, he hadn't just seen lightning of obliteration in the past, he'd even destroyed it. While the might of the lightning was very powerful, it wasn't as powerful as the lightning of obliteration. Moreover, only 9 bolts had descended, so why would he fear it? Thousands of years of cultivation destroyed in a moment. I'm not willing to accept this. I hate. Suddenly, a voice resounded from within the area that was once a gorge, but it didn't take long for it to vanish. Yang Yi had heard the voice, but he forgot it in an instant. His body was in a very bad state right now, so he didn't have the time to bother about anyone else. After around 4 hours passed, Yang Yi slowly opened his eyes, and his eyes were much clearer than before. He spat out a mouthful of foul air before he stood up slowly. He was at the high rank of the Exalt realm. After he finished absorbing the energy of the monkey wine that remained within his body, he'd instantly advanced into the high rank of the Exalt realm. Moreover, his body was in a much better condition now, and it was on par with all Monarch realm demon beasts now. Even though his strength had increased greatly, Yang Yi had quite the headache, because he noticed that he would need countless extreme-grade energy stones to advance into the Monarch realm. He hadn't counted the exact number because it was an astronomical number at any rate. Yang Yi shook his head and stopped thinking about that headache-inducing problem. He glanced at the surroundings, and his expression gradually became solemn when he saw the collapsed remains of the gorge. Looks like an expert was definitely overcoming his or her tribulation in the distance. I wonder if that person succeeded. Yang Yi pondered deeply for a moment, and then he walked towards the depths of the area. He decided to take a look, because he suddenly recalled the voice from before, and based on what the voice said, its owner seemed to have failed. Such an expert would definitely possess a huge amount of treasures. If that expert had failed, then a huge amount of treasures would have definitely been left behind, and even if that expert hadn't failed, that expert would have definitely suffered a heavy injury from such tribulation lightning. Needless to say, Yang Yi was walking towards the treasures. After all, he was utterly poor. Yang Ye's face grew more and more serious as he walked forward, because the ground he stood on was actually scarlet red like blood. Obviously, it had been dyed red by blood. Suddenly Yang Yi stopped moving because a small multicolored snake was curled up not too far away from him. The small snake was very tiny. It was only as thick as a finger, and it coiled up to the size of an adult's clenched fist. Injuries densely covered the entire snake's body, and the injuries seemed like they'd been cut open with sharp blades, causing the scarlet red flesh within to be revealed. It was quite a pitiful sight. "Were you injured by the remaining energy of the lightning?" Yang Yi pondered deeply for a moment, and then he walked over. He actually had no ill feelings towards demon beasts because of the violet mink. Of course, demon beasts which intended to kill him were excluded from that. Yang Yi walked over towards the small snake. Meanwhile, it suddenly opened its eyes, and then it just stared at Yang Yi. Yang Yi was shocked and said, "Little fellow, you don't even seem to possess a cultivation, yet you actually possess intelligence of your own?" With his discerning ability, he was naturally able to discern that the small snake before him was just an ordinary demon beast that didn't possess a cultivation. However, its eyes were very much alive, and Yang Yi was extremely surprised by it. The small snake was still staring at him. "Interesting." Yang Yi smiled, and then he stretched out his hand, picked it up and placed it on his palm. At this moment, there was a trace of anger in its eyes. "You're angry?" "I just advanced today, and it put me in a great mood." "So, you're lucky today." Yang Yi placed the tip of his finger against its head, and then a strand of violet energy flowed from the tip of his finger and entered into the small snake. Making his profound energy leave his body would cause his meridians to hurt like they were being minced apart. However, if it was only a small amount of profound energy like the tiny bit that he was providing the small snake right now, then it wouldn't cause any problems for his meridians, and it would merely cause him to feel slightly uncomfortable. The snake's eyes suddenly opened wide when his profound energy entered it, and disbelief had appeared there. After a few breaths of time passed, the injuries on the small snake had almost completely vanished. Yang Yi withdrew his finger and said, "It's all right now. Go on quickly. The energy from the heavenly lightning still remains here, and the slightest mishap might instantly cook you." As he spoke, he placed the small snake on the ground, and then he turned around and walked away. At the moment Yang Yi turned around, a cold glow suddenly appeared in the small snake's eyes, and then it opened its mouth. Meanwhile, Yang Yi had suddenly turned around to look at it. Just like that, both of them stared at each other, and time seemed like it was frozen still. Cold sweat gradually appeared on Yang Ye's forehead. At the same time, a sword appeared in his grasp. Roar! The small snake suddenly roared with fury, and then it transformed into a multicolored python. At this moment, their roles were reversed, and Yang Yi seemed as tiny as how the small snake seemed before him just moments ago. What exactly have I done?" As he gazed at the python that was clearly at the half-saint realm, Yang Yi knew that he'd courted death. After thousands of years of cultivation, I was only a step away from becoming a saint. Yet all is lost now. "Human, it was all your fault." The python spoke the human tongue, and its eyes were filled with ferocity. Yang Yi gulped and said, I didn't do anything. Are you sure you haven't mistaken me for someone else?" "Mistake you for someone else? I would recognize you even if you've transformed into ash." The python opened its huge mouth and was about to swallow Yang Yi alive. However, its figure suddenly shook slightly before Yang Yi was rendered utterly dumbstruck, because another enormous figure had flashed out from the python and appeared by its side. When Yang Yi focused his gaze on it, he noticed that it was actually another python. Two pythons. Both of them looked exactly the same. Moreover, both of them were at the half-saint realm. Xianxia's face twitched fiercely as he flipped his left hand, and the ancient sheath appeared in his left hand's grasp. After that, he sheathed his sword in it and said, "Hey heir, I think that we should talk properly. Please don't attack as it'll harm the friendly relationship that we have." Yang Yi would be an idiot to not realize it was these two pythons who were overcoming that tribulation from before, and it made him feel like killing himself. My God, I actually saved them. What was it like to court death? This was exactly it. Yang Yi truly wanted to cry. His current strength was naturally insufficient to resist two half-saints. Not to mention two, he couldn't even resist one. However, he hadn't resigned himself to submitting to them and waiting for death. So, the profound energy within him started to surge madly, and he would immediately utilize Heavenrend and his decay sword intent if they dared to attack him. While it would very likely reduce him to the same crippled state that he was in just a while ago, how could he be bothered by that when death was the other option? Talk about it? How truly laughable. The python on the left spoke ferociously. If you didn't destroy our energy concealment formation, then how could the Heaven Dao have noticed us? It was all your fault. It was you who caused our years of planning to be undone. You deserve death. It was about to attack once it finished speaking. Xianxia's eyelids twitched, and he tightened his grip of his sword in response. He was prepared to draw it at any moment. However, the python on the right suddenly said, "Big sister, forget it. Our actions were never right. Now that we've failed, we can only blame it on fate. Moreover, I don't think he did it on purpose. Besides that, we would have died by now if he didn't give us that strand of quintessence violet energy." Yang Yi had a really good impression of the python on the right when he heard that, and he said, "Senior, you're absolutely right. It has already come to this, so fighting will definitely be unable to solve the problem. Why don't we just sit down and talk about it?" The python on the left spoke furiously. "Talk? What is there to talk about? I'm truly unable to vent my hatred if I don't kill you." As soon as it finished speaking, it opened its mouth and intended to swallow Yang Yi alive. Meanwhile, Yang Yi suddenly shouted, "Do you know who I am?" Yang Yi hurriedly continued before the python could speak. "I'm a disciple of Taoist Gu from the ancient sword school. If you dare to oppress me, then my master will definitely destroy Broken Sky Mountain Range." At this moment, Yang Yi could only hope that Taoist Gu's name could deter the python. Otherwise, he might really die here. Taoist Gu? The python closed its mouth and didn't attack. Yang Yi immediately heaved a sigh of relief when he witnessed this scene, and he said, "Not only am I his disciple, I'm the next sword master that the ancient sword school is fostering in secret. If you attack me, then the entire ancient sword school would definitely swarm out and crush the entire demon race here." Meanwhile, the python had suddenly transformed into a red-clothed woman. She was extremely beautiful with exquisite features and a curvaceous figure, and she had dark red pupils that made her reveal a strange sort of beauty. "Are you threatening us?" She walked slowly towards Yang Yi while ghastly killing intent filled her eyes. Yang Yi pointed his sword up into the air and spoke coldly. "I just have to release a sword howl, and then the sword master of my ancient sword school and my master will be here in an instant. Trust me, I can kill you before they even arrive," said the red-clothed woman. Yang Yi took a deep breath, put his sword away and said, "I caused both of you to fail on the verge of success, and that was my mistake. But even your sister knows that besides forming enmity with my ancient sword school, you'll get nothing from killing me. So, I think that we can talk about it. After all, peace and harmony are always the best. What if I refuse? Why don't you give it a try?" Yang Ye's gaze turned icy cold. At the same time, he sheathed his sword again. He didn't seek trouble, but he wasn't afraid of it. She gazed at Yang Yi for a short while, and then she suddenly stretched her hand forward and made a grasping motion. The space around him instantly started to shrink, and the powerful pressure it exerted upon him almost crushed his bones into pieces. Fury flashed through Yang Ye's eyes as he grabbed the hilt of his sword, and he was just about to draw it. However, a woman in a green dress suddenly appeared between Yang Yi and the woman in red clothes, and the pressure instantly vanished. "Qing Ling, what are you doing?" The red-clothed woman was slightly displeased. The woman in a green dress who was called Qing Ling shook her head. Big sister, he's right. Besides being able to vent the anger in our hearts, there's no benefit to killing him. Conversely, we would form enmity with the ancient sword school. The red-clothed woman spoke coldly. He's too arrogant, and I can't stand the sight of him. Yang Yi was speechless. Qing Ling shook her head slightly before she turned around to look at Yang Yi. At this moment, Yang Yi finally saw her appearance, and he was surprised to notice that she looked exactly alike to the red-clothed woman. They simply seemed like they were made from the same mold, and he wouldn't have been able to differentiate them if they weren't wearing different clothes. The woman in a green dress was about to speak when the red-clothed woman's expression suddenly changed, and she looked up into the sky. After that, both of them transformed into tiny snakes that shot into Yang Ye's sleeves and coiled around his arms. Yang Yi was stunned. We'll kill you if you say a word. An icy cold voice resounded in Yang Ye's mind. It was the older sister of the pair. An enemy of ours is here. You absolutely can't tell him that we're with you. It was the younger sister this time. Suddenly, a robust middle-aged man arrived here. Yang Ye's pupils constricted slightly because the man's strength wasn't inferior at all to Xianxia and the Hallowed Lord while they were still half-saints. He was a high-rank half-saint. The middle-aged man paid no attention to Yang Yi. He just glanced incessantly at the surroundings instead. A short while passed before he suddenly laughed coldly. Bitches! You actually thought you could attain the Saint Realm? How laughable! After that, he swiftly turned around to gaze at Yang Yi and said, Human? Yang Yi nodded, and then he cupped his fist at the middle-aged man. Greetings, Senior. I'm Taoist Gu's personal disciple from the ancient sword school's Heavenly Sword Peak. Since he'd used this lie so many times, he felt that it made no difference to do it again. Taoist Gu? The middle-aged man frowned slightly, and he sized up Yang Yi for a moment before he said, Did you see two multicolored pythons? Yang Yi was about to speak when he felt his left arm being squeezed, and it caused his expression to darken slightly. A short while passed before he shook his head. I haven't. He knew that if he said that he had, then while those two women would die, he would definitely be the first to die. Since you haven't, then you can just die. The man waved his right hand as he spoke, and a gust of wind tore through space before instantly smashing against Yang Yi. A mouthful of blood sprayed out of Yang Ye's mouth while his figure was thrown over 3 kilometers away. In the end, his figure smashed against a mountain, causing it to collapse and bury him beneath the rubble. The middle-aged man vanished once he waved his hand. In his opinion, killing an ant at the Exalt realm only needed a mere wave of his palm. However, he'd never imagined that it didn't take long after he left for a person to crawl out of the rubble. It was naturally Yang Yi. Yang Yi hadn't suffered any serious injuries because it was just a casual attack that didn't carry the middle-aged man's full strength. What a fool! Suddenly, the red-clothed woman and the woman in a green dress appeared in front of Yang Yi. The red-clothed woman spoke coldly. The ancient sword school is strong, but not every member of the demon race fears it. At the very least, that demon commander from before has no need to fear the ancient sword school, because the demon king he serves is enemies with the ancient sword school. So, weren't you just courting death by speaking about the ancient sword school? Yang Yi paid no attention to her, and he just looked up into the sky instead. At this moment, he felt his weakness even more strongly, because even if he recovered his strength, the 9th rank of the monarch realm, it would still be too weak in the radiant dimension. Looks like I must scour the world for extreme-grade energy stones. Yang Yi took a deep breath before he stood up, turned around, and left. What a strong body! Qing Ling's eyes had a wisp of surprise flash through them when she saw Yang Yi seem as if he was completely fine, and it was the same for the red-clothed woman. After all, while it had only been a casual attack, it was still from a high-rank half-saint, and not to mention an Exalt realm cultivator. Even a monarch realm cultivator wouldn't have been able to resist such an attack. Yang Yi hadn't even taken a few steps before he stopped once more because the red-clothed woman was standing in his way. The red-clothed woman spoke coldly. We were high-rank half-saints, and we even had a chance to step into the saint realm earlier. However, you destroyed our formation and allowed the heavenly tribulation to appear in advance. Now, not only have our strengths fallen to the ranks of ordinary half-saints, even our bodies are severely damaged. Our current combat strength is even inferior to ordinary half-saints. Tell me, how should we deal with this? What do you want? Xianxia continued. In any case, I won't pay with my life. She grunted coldly in reply, and then she gazed at Qingling. The latter walked over to Xianxia and said, We definitely can't stay here because our Demon King is still in closed-door cultivation. If the Demon Kings of other mountain ranges or humans find out that we're heavily injured, then we'll definitely be killed in order to obtain our inner cores. So, we intend to go with you. With me. Xianxia frowned and said, Both of you aren't joking, right? Qingling said, We were injured by a heavenly tribulation, so we aren't able to recover with ordinary spirit energy. Moreover, our next tribulation is coming. So, we'll definitely die if we don't recover as soon as possible. My profound energy can help you recover, so you intend to stay with me and use it to recover, right? Asked Xianxia. She nodded in response. Xianxia started smiling, and then he said, Would I benefit from that? The red-clothed woman spoke coldly. The benefit is that you won't have to die. Woman, don't act so arrogantly. You're courting death. She was furious and about to attack, but Qingling stopped her before speaking to Xianxia. We had a huge amount of treasures, but all of them were destroyed while we attempted to resist the heavenly tribulation earlier. As for the other precious treasures we possessed, all of them were destroyed by the heavenly tribulation as well. So, Xianxia pondered deeply for a short while and said, Both of you can stay with me, but you have to help me when I face danger. He was currently all alone in this world, and it would be a great thing if he had the help of 2 experts. She replied, That's not a problem. However, we won't be able to help you for some time. Xianxia asked, Why? She answered, Our injuries are very severe, and we have to rest for some time. We can't help you during that period. Moreover, you even have to transfer that violet profound energy of yours to us, from time to time. Xianxia thought deeply for a moment before he replied, All right, just like that. A small snake resided beneath each of Xianxia's sleeves. A slight smile arose on the corners of Xianxia's mouth. While they couldn't help him for some time, and they even came with a certain amount of danger tied to them, they would be of great assistance to him if he used them well. After all, they needed his help. However, Xianxia was very well aware that he had to improve his strength as soon as possible. Otherwise, he wouldn't be qualified to bargain with them again once they'd recovered their true strengths. Xianxia restrained his thoughts and swiftly left the gorge. However, at the exact same instant that he had, a red glow that was like a thread of blood suddenly appeared by his neck and was about to chop off his head. At the same time, a voice resounded by his ear. No one has dared to take things from my Tao order. Even if there has been someone who did that, that person is dead now. Now, you'll become such a person as well. Right when it was about to slice through his neck, Xianxia's figure moved slightly backward before he swiftly smashed his fist forward. His fist rumbled through the air and shook the space around it. Bang! The red glow was instantly dispersed. Right after it was dispersed, a strand of strange energy suddenly appeared in the surroundings. Just like before, Xianxia felt like the blood and soul within him were about to leave his body. Xianxia's heart trembled, and he didn't dare act carelessly in the slightest. He immediately flipped his palm, and then he swung the sword which had appeared in his hand. Swish! It sounded like a sharp sword slicing through cloth, and then Xianxia instantly felt his blood and soul return to normal. Meanwhile, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of him, and then countless red glows surged out like blood-red threads from the black shadow and instantly enveloped Xianxia. Disperse! Xianxia roared furiously before rays of light shot crisscrossed as they shot forward. Hiss! Countless blood-red threads were dispersed while the black shadow appeared over 30 m away. The woman suddenly said, You're from the ancient sword school. I'm from the ancient sword school. A true disciple of the ancient sword school. Xianxia walked towards her with his sword in hand. It had become quite a habit for him to pretend to be a disciple of the ancient sword school. Since you are, then you really do deserve death. As soon as she finished speaking, black shadows suddenly covered the sky before countless blood-red threads of light enveloped down towards Xianxia like a net that could slice him into pieces. The threads were many times thicker than before, and they were numerous times faster as well. It only took them an instant to completely envelop Xianxia. Break apart. Xianxia's voice resounded once more, and then countless rays of light flashed between the blood-red threads, causing them to be instantly sliced into pieces. After that, a ray of light shot swiftly towards her. Soul thirst. She didn't seem to have moved at all, but Xianxia's sword that was glowing brilliantly had been stopped in midair and wasn't able to move forward at all. Meanwhile, Xianxia suddenly appeared behind his sword, and he took its hilt in both hands before swiftly spinning it. Swoosh! Xianxia and his sword pierced straight through the black shadow. It slowly dispersed, but Xianxia's expression grew even more solemn, because a black shadow was standing over 100 m away from him. Xianxia knew that if he didn't execute a sword technique, then it would be impossible for him to kill her with just his physical strength. However, he would have to endure intense pain if he were to do that, so he didn't want to execute any sword techniques, especially when he was within this boundless mountain range. After all, he hadn't forgotten about the spirit ape king and the other demon beasts. I must restore my meridians as soon as possible. If it wasn't for his meridians, then killing her wouldn't be difficult at all. But the issue with his meridians caused him to suffer such great restrictions to his strength. She suddenly asked, "The ancient sword school has 3 geniuses at the Exalt realm. Lin Xiao, Yun Pe, and Ming Xiu. Are you one of them? If you want to fight, then let's fight. What's with all the talk?" As soon as he finished speaking, his figure had appeared in front of her, and he swiftly smashed his fist forward. Bang! The black shadow was blasted apart, but Xianxia's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't even hesitate to turn around and smash his fist forward. At the moment he did, a ray of red light struck against his fist. Bang! The red light was dispersed, but Xianxia flashed to the side while a fine and tiny ray of red light flashed by where he was standing. After that, he used his leg to make a partial turn before his right left swept towards the left. Bang! A muffled bang resounded as a black shadow took a few steps back. Meanwhile, Xianxia seemed like a tiger pouncing at a sheep as he leaped towards the black figure and kicked swiftly. Even space trembled before his kick. Bang! The black shadow took around a dozen more steps back, and she just stopped her figure when Xianxia appeared in front of her again. After that, his attacks descended like a storm. At this moment, she was completely suppressed by him. Xianxia didn't give her the slightest chance to execute a technique, and he constantly engaged in closed-quartered combat with her. Obviously, it wasn't one of her fortes, so she was practically incapable of fighting back and could only defend passively. She did counterattack occasionally, but what she got in return was even fiercer attacks. While she was completely suppressed, Xianxia didn't seem relaxed at all, because her movement technique was truly too shocking, and she was able to rely on it to prevent him from causing any material harm to herself while being completely suppressed by him. Shadow flash! Her voice suddenly resounded, and then her figure stiffened slightly before countless shadows erupted from her. They formed a dense mass of over a few thousand, and it was truly a shocking sight. Xianxia didn't continue attacking, and he just stood on the spot because she was over 1 kilometer away now. Sure enough, it didn't take long for the shadows to vanish, and a black shadow was standing over 1 kilometer away from him. "Are you a sword cultivator or a body cultivator?" Her voice was very gloomy, and it carried a trace of anger and annoyance. "You asked me to take it, so I took it. Yet now you're unhappy now. Can't you accept defeat? Is this how the Tao order acts?" Xianxia walked slowly towards her while ridicule hung on the corners of his mouth. "You have no right to judge my Tao order." Her voice carried ghastly killing intent. "But I'm stronger than you." Xianxia flipped his palm, and a sword appeared there. After that, he stomped his right foot against the ground and shouted, "Sword unification!" As soon as he spoke, a sword howl shot into the sky, and then a ray of light immediately shot forward like a bolt of lightning. Yang Yi hadn't intended to utilize a sword technique, but she showed no intent to retreat, and he really didn't want to waste time here with her. So, he'd immediately activated the mortal sword of the tri-apex sword technique. Hiss! Yang Yi flashed through the black shadow along with his sword, and his sword had scarlet-red blood on it. However, Yang Ye's eyes still carried a slightly solemn expression in them because the black shadow behind him had vanished. "I'll definitely repay you 100-fold for that." The woman's voice resounded from over 5 kilometers away. Yang Yi put his sword away while his brows knit together tightly. After all, he's forced his profound energy to pass through his meridians, so the sharp pain he felt from his meridians was truly horrible. Yang Yi sat cross-legged on the ground and started utilizing the remaining profound energy within him to nourish his broken meridians. Actually, even he couldn't figure out why his violet profound energy couldn't restore his meridians. After all, while it was inferior to true primordial violet energy, it was still extremely pure. It could even help those 2 snakes recover from their injuries. Yet it couldn't restore his meridians. Could there be something else that's causing all of this? Yang Yi immersed his consciousness into his body, and then started carefully observing his meridians. However, he didn't notice anything unusual. Forget it, no matter what it is. So long as I'm able to access the primordial pagoda, then the primordial violet energy within it would definitely be able to restore my meridians. Yang Yi was absolutely confident in the primordial violet energy he possessed. After all, there hadn't been anything that it couldn't solve until now. 2 hours later, Yang Ye's meridians were slightly better, so he left. His current goal was to look for Lu Wanner because she was the first person he knew that he'd heard of after arriving here, and he felt that he might be able to find out about a Nanjing, Xiao Yushi, and the others' whereabouts through her. Besides his goal to become stronger, he had another goal when he arrived at the Radiance Dimension, and it was to reunite with all his loved ones. Yang Yi didn't choose to look for her right away, because he didn't know which peak of the ancient sword school she resided on. Even if he didn't know how to get there. So, he returned to Skywind City, and he intended to ask Fanli about it while paying a visit to Fanmeng as well. Hehe. The Yi clan's eldest young master is truly lucky. Not only is he going to marry the eldest young miss of the Fan clan, he even intends to marry their second young Mississippi Hehe. A pair. How lucky! Of course, the eldest young master of the Yi clan had an agreement to marry the eldest young miss of the Fan clan, but he joined Broken Saber Villa. With a silver rank sect like the Broken Saber Villa standing behind him, just marrying both of them isn't a problem at all. The Fan clan wouldn't dare say a thing, even if he made them his concubines instead. I heard Stellar Sky City stepped forward to help the Fan clan? Stellar Sky City? Stop joking. They can't even protect themselves now. I heard the Beastmaster sect joined forces with numerous other silver rank sects, and they're besieging Stellar Sky City right now. Alas, young Miss Li is an extraordinary beauty. I wonder how terrible the consequences will be for her if Stellar Sky City is destroyed. There's an ancient saying that's absolutely correct. The beautiful are ill-fated. Alas, the Yi clan will be the sole overlord of Skywind City from now onward, and the city itself might fall under its control. As soon as he entered Skywind City, Yang Yi heard a conversation between a few people, and his face instantly sank. He suddenly stomped his foot on the ground and vanished on the spot. The Fan clan. At this moment, it was completely surrounded while 2 fiery red bridal sedan chairs stood outside its entrance. There was a young man standing before those 2 bridal sedan chairs. Suddenly, the entrance opened, and then a woman in a fiery red dress walked out from the Fan clan. It was Fanli. Fanli spoke coldly. Yiyu, you can marry me, but please let my sister go. The young man called Yiyu laughed coldly. Fanli, you aren't qualified to try and bargain with me now. I'll give you 10 minutes to make your younger sister come here, and then return to the Yi clan with me. Otherwise, besides the 2 of you, the entire Fan clan will be annihilated. Suddenly, Fan Meng ran out of the Fan clan, and then she glared angrily at Yiyu. Yiyu, I'm telling you, if you dare to bully me and my older sister, then Yang Yi won't let you go. Do you? Do you know Yang Yi? He's very formidable. He'll annihilate your Yi clan. I'm not joking. Yang Yi. Yi Yu had a savage expression on his face. I hate it when my women speak about other men in front of me. I'll do as I please. Fan Meng suddenly spoke furiously. Yi Yu. Me and my older sister would rather marry Yang Yi than you. Yi Yu's expression grew even more ferocious. He turned around to gaze at the old man by his side and said, Kill every single person called Yang Yi in Skywind City. No. Kill everyone related to anyone called Yang Yi. When he spoke up to this point, he turned around to gaze at Fan Meng. Good, very good. You're showing signs of making me wear a green hat, even before you've become my woman. Wouldn't you be worse once you've become mine? Perhaps I have to make an example of you today. A wisp of lust flashed through his eyes, and then he started to undo his robes. Fan Meng and Fan Li's expressions changed while Fan Li shouted angrily, Yi Yu, what are you doing? A trace of excitement and madness filled his eyes as he said, I'm going to sleep with both of you today. Ha ha ha. Members of the Yi clan, hear me. Once I'm done with the first round, all of you will get your turns. As soon as he finished speaking, he completely undid his robes, and then he started walking towards them. That little birdie of yours is dog food now. Suddenly, a ghastly voice resounded, and then a ray of light flashed through the air. Ah! An extremely miserable and shrill cry resounded, and it was accompanied by a strand of blood that suddenly sprayed from Yi Yu's lower body. It sprayed over 3 m away. Everyone here was petrified, and only Yi Yu's miserable howls resounded. Yang Yi! Fan Meng instantly cried out with joy when she saw him while Fan Li's expression eased up. There was a slightly complicated expression in Fan Li's eyes as she gazed at Yang Yi. After he heard about the Fan clan at the entrance to the city, Yang Yi had immediately rushed over, and he'd never imagined that he would just happen to witness that scene from before. He hadn't been able to restrain himself, and he'd instantly shot out a ray of sword energy and transformed Yi Yu into a eunuch. Meanwhile, the members of the Yi clan had finally recovered from their shock, and one of them spoke with shock when he saw Yang Yi. It's you? Yang Yi looked over towards the source of the voice, and a cold glow flashed through his eyes when he saw the young man. He recognized the young man. That day when he'd woken up in the Radiance dimension and encountered Fan Li, there was a man by her side. At that time, Yang Yi had suffered a kick from that man because Fan Li had gotten close to him and spoken to him. Moreover, that kick had almost shattered his bones. Yang Yi walked slowly towards the young man and said, I still remember you. You're Yi Lang. I'm quite a fair person. You kicked me once that day, so I'll do the same to you. I guarantee that I won't look for trouble with you after that. As he spoke, Yang Yi suddenly vanished on the spot. Bang! The others watched with astonishment as Yi Lang was blasted flying, and he only flew for a few meters before his body exploded apart and transformed into mush. All of them were astounded. Who are you? Meanwhile, Yi Yu had stopped letting out shrill cries, and he sat weakly on the ground while he stared fixedly at Yang Yi with eyes that were filled with resentment. Weren't you looking for me just now? Yang Yi flashed over to Yi Yu and looked down at him. You're Yang Yi. Yi Yu had never imagined that Fan Meng was actually telling the truth, and this fellow, Yang Yi, actually possessed such terrifying strength. Yang Yi didn't waste his breath. He tapped the tip of his foot against the ground and was just about to attack when Fan Li appeared in front of him. Keep him alive. The Yi clan has 5 Monarch Realm experts, and one of them is even a high-rank Monarch Realm expert. On the other hand, my Fan clan only has 3 Monarch Realm experts. Coupled with the fact that he's backed by the Broken Saber Villa, my Fan clan isn't a match for him at all. Bitch! Suddenly, Yi Yu spoke furiously. I'll make living worse than death for both you and your younger sister. I'll annihilate the entire Fan clan. When he spoke up to this point, he gazed at Yang Yi and said, As for you, I'll slaughter your entire family. No. I'll let the entire city have a turn with all the women of your family. I'll make living worse than death for everyone related to you. Fan Li had an extremely unsightly expression on her face. Meanwhile, Yang Yi shook his head and said, See, He's being high and mighty once you said that. When he spoke up to this point, Yang Yi looked at Yi Yu and said, "You think I don't dare to kill you? And that's why you're acting so fearlessly and arrogantly. Do you dare? Do you?" Yi Yu's eyes were filled with madness. "My Yi clan has 5 monarch realm experts. My grandfather is only half a step away from the half-saint realm, and my older sister belongs to the young master of Broken Saber Villa. Do you dare to touch me? Do you?" Yang Yi shook his head and turned to look at Fan Li instead. "I finally understand why you didn't want to marry this trash. To be honest, it's just as Little Meng said. It's better to marry me than marry him. While I'm a little ugly, at least I'm stronger than this fellow." Fan Li was speechless. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi turned around to gaze at Yi Yu. The latter intended to continue speaking, but Yang Ye's foot suddenly swept towards his head. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, 4 rays of light flashed through the sky, and then a voice suddenly resounded. "How presumptuous!" Accompanying the voice was a ray of white light that shot towards Yang Yi like a bolt of lightning. However, Yang Ye's leg didn't stop at all. Bang! Yi Yu's head flew up into the air while a fountain of blood sprayed from his neck. After he kicked Yi Yu's head flying, Yang Ye's figure spun swiftly as he smashed his fist forward, causing the white light to instantly disperse. Meanwhile, 4 old men had appeared in front of Yang Yi, and they were all at the Monarch Realm. However, they were low-rank Monarch Realm experts. "You were..." One of the old men's eyes almost split apart with rage when he saw the horrifying state Yi Yu was in, and a row of crimson-red tears flowed down from his eyes. He turned around to gaze at Yang Yi with eyes that were filled with madness and killing intent. "I, Yi Tiannan, swear to kill you." On the other hand, the faces of the other 3 old men sank, and they gazed at Yang Yi with killing intent in their eyes. At the same time, Fan Li suddenly shouted furiously, "Grandfather, uncle, 3rd uncle, if you still refuse to show yourselves, then Little Meng and I shall leave the Fan clan forever." A moment of silence ensued before 3 old men flew out from the Fan clan, and they descended by Fan Li and Fan Meng's side. One of the old men glanced at Yang Yi, and then he looked at Yi Yu's corpse before he sighed softly. "Brother Tiannan, I never expected it to be like this. Alas!" After that, he gazed at Yang Yi and said, "Who are you? Why have you interfered in the matters of my Fan clan and the Yi clan?" Yang Yi was quite stunned. Whose side are they on? He glanced at Fan Li and Fan Meng with a puzzled expression, and the both of them had extremely unsightly expressions on their faces as well. Fan Meng spoke with displeasure. "Grandfather, don't tell me you don't know what sort of fellow that Yi Yu is? But you still want us to marry him even though you do know. You're pushing both of us into a life of eternal misery. How dare you?" The old man spoke furiously. "Young Master Yi Yu is the #1 genius of Skywind City. While he's a little amorous, it's very normal to be that way. After all, which man isn't? Your marriage would definitely allow both of you to enjoy a life of endless luxury and great status. At the same time, the Fan clan would be able to benefit from it as well. But both of you..." When he spoke up to this point, he pointed at Yang Yi and said, "Tell me who he is." Fan Meng instantly shed tears of sorrow when she heard him, while tears had started to emerge in Fan Li's eyes. "Fan Kong, did you think my Yi clan would spare your Fan clan because you said that?" Yi Tiannan spoke furiously. "Out of consideration for the fact that our clans were about to be united in marriage, my Yi clan didn't intend to act against your Fan clan. But I never imagined that." When he spoke up to this point, he gazed at Fan Li and Fan Meng before he continued. "It was all because of you bitches. Once we finish slaughtering the Fan clan, I'll cripple both of your cultivations and nail both of you to the city gates. I'll make both of you become the women of all the men in Skywind City." Fan Meng's face turned pale, and she hid behind Yang Yi. As for Fan Li, she moved closer to him as well. "As for you..." Yi Tiannan suddenly gazed at Yang Yi and was about to speak. However, Yang Yi had vanished on the spot, and he was already in front of Yi Tiannan when his figure appeared once more. After that, a fist smashed straight towards Yi Tiannan's head. Yi Tiannan's face turned grim. He hadn't expected that Yang Yi would actually just attack, and he was completely caught off guard and unable to dodge at all. He had no choice but to clench his right fist tightly and smash it against Xianxia's fist. Crack! As soon as their fists collided, Yi Tiannan's expression suddenly changed drastically because the bones in his hand had been instantly broken. He was just about to retreat when Yang Yi pressed forward, and then Yang Yi smashed his right fist against Yi Tiannan's stomach. Bang! A mouthful of blood sprayed from Yi Tiannan's mouth while his figure was blasted flying. Horizon warp! Yang Ye's voice resounded once more, and then he suddenly appeared in front of Yi Tiannan. After that, Yi Tiannan felt something tighten around his neck. When he looked down, he saw that Yang Ye's hand was already around his neck. Yi Tiannan was horrified. From the moment Yang Yi attacked until the end of the battle, not even 2 breaths of time had passed. So, many of the people here hadn't even recovered from their shock, and when they did, Yi Tiannan was already held in Yang Ye's hand like a helpless little chick. The Monarch Realm experts of the Yi clan and Fan clan had disbelief all over their faces when they witnessed this scene. While Yi Tiannan was at the Monarch Realm, he was much weaker than Ling Xing or that woman from the Dao Order. Regardless of whether it was his combat instinct or the techniques he possessed. Who exactly are you? One of the Monarch Realm experts of the Yi clan gazed at Yang Yi with shock, and his eyes were filled with fear. After all, Yi Tiannan's strength wasn't inferior to his own. However, Yang Yi had defeated Yi Tiannan with such ease. So, how could he not be afraid? At this moment, Yi Tiannan's face was covered in terror. He wanted to say something yet couldn't. Yang Yi tossed Yi Tiannan to the ground. However, right when Yi Tiannan wanted to move, Yang Ye's foot stomped down against his stomach, and the powerful force it carried caused the ground beneath him to crack apart. Yi Tiannan stared fixedly at Yang Yi as he roared, "My Yi clan will kill you! Will kill you!" Yang Yi didn't speak, and he just moved his foot slowly. As it moved, Yi Tiannan's entire face turned ghastly pale because he seemed to know what Yang Yi was about to do, and it filled his eyes with horror. Bang! A muffled bang resounded from Yi Tiannan's stomach. His dantian had been shattered. Yi Tiannan was finished. Yang Yi withdrew his foot, and then he glanced at the other members of the Yi clan. "Which one of you wants to go next?" Their hearts shook when they heard this, and they took 2 steps back subconsciously. Yang Yi glanced coldly at them, and then he gazed at Fan Meng. "Leave the Fan clan and leave with me." Fan Meng didn't hesitate to nod. "My older sister as well." Yang Yi nodded. Suddenly, Fan Meng's grandfather shouted furiously at Yang Yi. "Who exactly are you? Your actions will bring calamity upon my Yi clan. You?" Suddenly, his voice stopped abruptly because Yang Yi had appeared in front of him, and then he felt a hand clamp down on his throat. "You!" Fan Meng's grandfather was astounded. Fan Li was just about to speak. Crack! The clear and melodious sound of bones breaking resounded. Fan Meng's grandfather's eyes instantly opened wide while disbelief filled them. But it didn't take long for the color in his eyes to dim down. Yang Yi tossed the old man's corpse, and it exploded into a pile of mush. After that, he turned to look at Fan Meng and said, "Having such a grandfather alive will be of no benefit to you. So, it's best for him to be dead." As he spoke, he turned to glance at the remaining 2 experts of the Fan clan and said, "Have they ever bullied you?" The other 2 Monarch Realm experts of the Fan clan were horrified. They were truly fearful of Yang Yi. After all, 2 Monarch Realm experts had practically been unable to resist Yang Yi. So how could they not fear him? It wasn't just the Monarch Realm experts of the Fan clan who were afraid, even the others from the Yi clan were afraid. So, even if Yang Yi had killed Yi Yu and Yi Tiannan, they hadn't dared to attack him. Fan Meng hurriedly shook her head when she heard Yang Yi. While she didn't like both her uncles, it didn't mean she wanted them dead. Yang Yi glanced at the members of the Fan clan, and then he gazed at Fan Li. "Get us a skyward carriage." A skyward carriage was a type of carriage, but it wasn't pulled by ordinary horses. It was pulled by Pegasus horses. Fan Li nodded. While she intended to leave the Fan clan, she still had a huge amount of authority in the Fan clan. So, it didn't take long for a carriage to appear before Yang Ye's group. Yang Yi said, "Get on." Fan Meng was quite worried about Yang Yi, so she was hesitant. However, Fan Li pulled her into the carriage because she knew that both she and her younger sister couldn't help Yang Yi at all. Not only were they unable to help, they were burdens to him. A monarch realm expert of the Yi clan stepped forward when he saw that Yang Yi intended to leave, and he spoke in a low voice. "Who exactly are you?" Yang Yi turned around to gaze at that monarch realm expert while a wisp of ridicule appeared on the corners of his mouth. "You want to take revenge? You can. If your Yi clan has the ability, then come to the Tao Order to look for me." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi turned around, got onto the carriage, and then patted the Pegasus. The latter neighed before vanishing on the spot. The Tao Order. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically when they heard these words, and the members of the Yi clan even broke out with cold sweat. The Tao Order was a platinum rank sect, so wouldn't seeking revenge from it be no different than being tired of living? Not to mention taking revenge, with the way the Tao Order did things, the deaths of 2 people of the Yi clan might only be the beginning. Swoosh! 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 Suddenly, an old man, a woman, and 2 other men arrived here. Yi Zhan. The expressions of the last 2 monarch realm experts of the Fan clan changed drastically when they saw the old man. Because the old man was the ancestor of the Yi clan, and the one and only high-rank monarch realm expert in Skywind City. Once they noticed the horrible state both Yi Tiannan and Yi Yu were in, the expressions of Yi Zhan and the woman by his side had instantly become ferocious. Who did it? The old man gazed at one of the monarch realm experts of the Yi clan. The woman by the old man's side spoke gloomily. "No matter who he is, I'll kill him to comfort the souls of my father and younger brother. Haha. I never expected that someone would actually not give face to my broken saber villa." The man who stood by the woman's side took her hand and said, "Don't worry, Yue. My broken saber villa will seek justice for you, no matter who he is. He said he's from the Tao Order." Meanwhile, one of the monarch realm experts of the Yi clan spoke abruptly, and there was a trace of bitterness on his face. Because if that fellow, Yang Yi, was truly from the Tao Order, then the Yi clan's members would have died for nothing. Not only that, the Yi clan would even have to think about how it would calm the wrath of the Tao Order. Otherwise, it wouldn't just be the Yi clan that would be destroyed. Even the broken saber villa, which was related to the Yi clan, would suffer annihilation. The Tao Order always annihilated everyone. The Tao Order. All of their expressions changed when they heard these words. At this moment, the killing intent in their eyes had vanished, and there was only heaviness and fear in their eyes. While the Tao Order was very far away from here, its influence covered the entire Pine Prefecture. If such a power intended to crush the Yi clan, then it wouldn't even have to give the order. It merely had to display slight displeasure towards the Yi clan, and then the Yi clan might be destroyed. The Tao Order? The man by Yi Yu's side suddenly frowned, and then he gazed at the man on his right. The man's appearance was quite mysterious. He wore a red robe, and had extremely strange eyes that were unlike the eyes of ordinary people because they were blood red. While he hadn't spoken a single word, the others sensed a strong sense of danger coming from him. The red-robed man frowned and said, "He said that he's from the Tao Order?" The monarch realm expert of the Yi clan nodded and said, "That's what he said before he left." The red-robed man pondered deeply for a moment before he said, "I'll go inquire about him and see if any disciples of my Tao Order have come to Skywind City." As he spoke, his figure shook slightly before it vanished on the spot. Yi spoke with astonishment. "Duan Lang, that friend of yours is from the Tao Order." The other members of the Yi clan gazed at him with astonishment as well. Obviously, they hadn't imagined that he would actually know someone from the Tao Order. The man who stood by Yi Yu's side nodded and said, "Brother Lu Sha is a disciple of the mortal path of the Tao Order's 3 paths. We encountered each other by chance, and we became friends because we got along well. Don't worry, Yue. If that fellow, Yang Yi, is truly a disciple of the Tao Order, then Brother Lu Sha's status in the Tao Order would definitely be sufficient to resolve the enmity between him and your Yi clan. If he isn't a member of the Tao Order." "Humph. Pretending to be a disciple of the Tao order is undoubtedly a form of provocation to the Tao order. Based on the way it does things, that fellow will definitely die. Yu nodded, and then she gazed at the members of the Fan clan. My younger brother and father died miserably because of the Fan clan. Every single member of the Fan clan will die today. As soon as she finished speaking, a slaughter began. On a plain, a carriage was dashing swiftly, and it caused rumbling to resound in its wake from the extreme speed it traveled at. Xianxia sat cross-legged within it while ceaselessly absorbing the extreme-grade energy stones he got from Fanli. While he seemed to have instantly annihilated 2 Monarch Realm experts with such ease, he'd actually paid a huge price. He'd utilized a movement technique, the Horizon Warp technique. After all, just the speed his physical strength granted him was utterly insufficient to instantly kill Monarch Realm experts. Moreover, if he didn't immediately deter the rest upon attacking, then they would definitely join forces against him. Once that happened, then the price he would have to pay wouldn't be as small as it was now. The sharp pain that came from his meridians was nothing. After all, such pain wasn't lethal to him, and it just hurt a little. The true problem was that he'd realized that constantly utilizing profound energy had caused the problem with his meridians to worsen. He noticed that the meridians within him were showing signs of breaking even further. I must gain access to the primordial pagoda as soon as possible. Xianxia knew that the only way to fully restore his meridians was the primordial violet energy from the primordial pagoda. Only primordial violet energy could restore him to his peak strength as soon as possible. Besides recovering his former cultivation, there was something else that he wanted to recover, and it was his sword intent. While his attainments in the sword Tao were extremely formidable, but the lack of sword intent to support it caused his combat strength to be greatly reduced. A long time later, the problem with Xianxia's meridians had finally been temporarily suppressed after he absorbed the energy within over 1,000 extreme-grade energy stones, and the sharp pain had lessened drastically as well. However, there was a problem that troubled him. While he'd consumed over 1,000 extreme-grade energy stones, not only had his cultivation shown no signs of advancing, it hadn't even strengthened in the slightest. Looks like I have to think of some other way to improve my strength to the Monarch realm. Xianxia shook his head lightly, and then he opened his eyes slowly. As soon as he did, Xianxia noticed that Fan Meng was squatting in front of him, and her hands were supporting her chin up as she stared fixedly at him. Xianxia smiled and said, "What are you looking at me for? Aren't you afraid that you'll have nightmares?" Fan Meng suddenly stretched out her hand and touched the scars on Xianxia's left cheek. "It surely hurts a lot for you, right?" Xianxia's heart softened when he noticed the pain in Fan Meng's eyes. "That's nothing. The hardships I suffered in the past were much more terrifying than this." He wasn't lying, because just thinking about how it felt when Elder Mu used the nether ghost flame to temper his body. Even now, that feeling was still engraved deeply within him. Fan Meng asked another question. "How did you fall to such a terrible state?" She still remembered that Xianxia was only at the mortal realm when he was at the Fan clan, and he was even taking care of the horses, even if he'd only done it for a few days. Fan Li looked at him as well. Actually, she wanted to know the answer as well. After all, Xianxia wasn't even able to move when she found him that day. Xianxia remained silent. Fan Meng asked softly, "You can't tell me?" Xianxia shook his head and said, "Me and many others fought a very powerful enemy. That enemy was so powerful that many of us died. While I survived, I suffered extremely severe injuries. The time I met your older sister was the time that my injuries were the most severe, and I still haven't recovered until now." She asked again, "Were you very strong in the past?" Xianxia rubbed her head and said, "I was just ordinary." Fan Meng asked, "How strong is ordinary? Were you as strong as the Yi clan's ancestor? He's a high-rank Monarch realm expert. I heard he's only half a step away from the half-saint realm." Xianxia replied, "I can fight 100 experts like him." Suddenly, a furious roar resounded from outside the carriage. "Xianxia, you killed my son and grandson. I'll slaughter you." Fan Meng blinked and said, "He's the Yi clan's ancestor. You said you can fight 100 experts like him. Yang Yi was speechless. Just stay in here. Yang Yi flicked his finger against Fan Meng's forehead, and then he flashed out of the carriage. There were 3 old men, 2 young men, and a woman not too far away from them. Yang Ye's gaze paused for a moment on the old man who led the ground, and then his gaze moved towards the young man in a red robe. However, it didn't take long for him to withdraw his gaze and speak fiercely. How many years have it been? Someone has actually dared to look for trouble with my Dao order. Needless to say, your Yi clan is truly formidable. What nonsense! Yi Zhan roared furiously. You still intend to put on an act when death is upon you? You aren't a disciple of the Dao order at all. Yang Yi shrugged and said, Since you say I'm not one, then why don't you just attack me? The corners of Yi Zhan's eyes twitched when he witnessed this scene. He did want to attack, but he was slightly worried. Because if Yang Yi truly was a disciple of the Dao order, then the Yi clan would be destroyed. Not only would it be destroyed, even he would definitely die a graveless death. Even if his son and grandson were gone, more could still be made. However, he would truly be finished if he even lost his life. When he thought up to this point, Yi Zhan gazed at the red-robed man, Lu Sha. But he was stunned when he looked at Lu Sha because Lu Sha was gone. He swiftly turned around and saw that Lu Sha was already in front of Yang Yi. Lu Sha was less than 3 m away from Yang Yi, and a fierce smile had curled up onto the corners of his mouth. Needless to say, I really admire your courage. While I can't say that none would dare to pretend to be members of my Dao order throughout Pine Prefecture, they absolutely can be counted on one hand. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. He hadn't expected that he would actually encounter a disciple of the Dao order. However, it didn't take long for him to calm down and laugh coldly. Your Dao order? How truly laughable. Someone actually dares to pretend to be a member of the Dao order in front of me. How truly laughable. When he spoke up to this point, he glanced at Yi Zhan's group and said, Your Yi clan is amazing. You actually dared to collude with someone who's pretending to be a member of my Dao order. Very good indeed. The faces of Yi Zhan and the others turned slightly grim, and they glanced at Lu Sha with slight doubt in their eyes. At this moment, they couldn't decide who was telling the truth. Yi Yu gazed at her husband while the young man glanced at Lu Sha instead, and he had a questioning gaze in his eyes. You're courting death. Lu Sha shouted furiously when he heard Yang Yi spout such lies, and his eyes instantly turned crimson red. After that, a red ray of light surged out from within him and pressed down towards Yang Yi. It was slaughter intent. 8th level slaughter intent. Yi Zhan and the others were astounded by this scene. They hadn't imagined that Lu Sha had actually comprehended 8th level slaughter intent. At the same time, they believed Lu Sha's identity a little more. After all, the Dao order was filled with ruthless people, and practically every single one of its disciples had blood on their hands. Since Lu Sha possessed 8th level slaughter intent, they felt that he was definitely a disciple of the Dao order. Because slaughter intent was usually comprehended through slaughter. After they confirmed Lu Sha's identity, Yi Zhan intended to attack. However, he was instantly flabbergasted. It wasn't just Yi Zhan. Even Lu Sha had opened his eyes wide and shock filled them. Because Yang Yi hadn't resisted the red light that came from Lu Sha, and he allowed it to envelop him. But the slaughter intent had only just covered him when it bounced back completely. It was like it had encountered something terrifying. You dare to display such slaughter intent before me? How laughable! Yang Yi laughed coldly as he smashed his fist forward, and the slaughter intent was instantly dispersed. While he hadn't comprehended slaughter intent, he'd killed many, and the baleful energy he possessed was much stronger than Lu Sha's killing intent. The only difference was that the baleful energy he possessed couldn't be released from him like Lu Sha's slaughter intent could. You? How could you possibly? Lu Sha gazed at Yang Yi with astonishment. There could only be 2 reasons why his slaughter intent didn't work. The first was that Yang Yi's strength far surpassed his own, and the second was that Yang Yi had killed much more than him. The expression of the man by Yi Yu's side changed drastically because he'd never imagined that Yang Yi would actually be immune to slaughter intent. My God! Could he have killed even more than Wuxia? On the other hand, Yi Zhan and Yi Yu were beyond shocked. Not only were they shocked, they were terrified. Because if Yang Yi really was a disciple of the Tao Order, then wouldn't they have colluded with a fake disciple of the Tao Order to go against the Tao Order, just as Yang Yi had said earlier? When they thought up to this point, cold sweat started to pour from them. Who are you? Wuxia spoke gloomily. This time, he didn't choose to attack because the man who stood before him didn't just possess a mysterious identity. Even his strength was very mysterious. Yang Yi replied coldly, I'm naturally from the Tao Order. Impossible. Wuxia spoke gloomily. I've asked the members of my mortal path, and none of them have come to Skywind City. None of them are even called Yang Yi. The mortal path? Yang Yi laughed with ridicule. Did I say I was from the mortal path? You! Wuxia's eyes opened wide as he spoke with astonishment. You're from the earthly path. The Tao Order had 3 paths, and it was the heavenly path, earthly path, and mortal path. The heavenly path was the strongest. All of them were half-saints. Next was the earthly path, and they were monarch realm experts, at least. The last was the mortal path. So, Wuxia was truly quite afraid when he heard Yang Yi. Because if Yang Yi really was from the earthly path, then not to mention him, even 10 of him would still die without a doubt. After all, they weren't purely divided by realms of cultivation. For example, if he, Wuxia, wanted to have a chance to enter the earthly path, then not only did he have to attain the monarch realm, then he had to attain heaven rank slaughter intent at the very least. It was only a chance and not definite. Yi Zhan and the others had turned ghastly pale when they heard Wuxia. The earthly path? Yang Yi was amused as he was wondering how to continue the act. He never imagined that Wuxia would give him such a good excuse. So, he placed his hands behind his back and walked slowly towards Wuxia before he spoke coldly. How audacious of you to actually collude with outsides against members of my Tao Order. Perhaps I'll have to clean up for the sect today. Are you really from the earthly path? Wuxia had calmed down. While he very rarely met anyone from the earthly path, he knew that they were at the monarch realm, at least. Moreover, every single one of them possessed unique abilities. However, this fellow standing before him, Yang Yi, was only at the Exalt realm. So he was quite doubtful. Yang Yi didn't waste his breath on Wuxia. He stomped his right foot against the ground and shot forward. His figure instantly arrived before Wuxia, and then his leg swept towards Wuxia. The powerful force it carried simply caused the space around it to rumble. Wuxia was shocked when he noticed the force that Yang Ye's leg carried, and he instinctively crossed his hands to block it. Bang! Yi Zhan and the others watched with astonishment as Wuxia's figure was blasted flying. Yang Yi didn't follow up with another attack, and he returned to the side of the carriage instead, because he noticed that Yi Zhan seemed to be eager to attack. Yi Zhan's face fell when he saw Yang Yi return to the carriage. He'd intended to capture Fan Meng and Fan Lan to threaten Yang Yi, because based on the current circumstances, he couldn't flee at all. After all, even if he fled to the ends of the world, the Tao Order definitely possessed the strength to annihilate him. The only way to live was to eliminate Yang Yi. As for begging for mercy, he wasn't that naive. After all, based on the enmity between the Yi clan and Yang Yi, begging for mercy would be no different than asking for insult. As if he knew what Yi Zhan was thinking, Yang Yi laughed coldly and said, "What? You intend to kill me to keep me quiet?" Yi Zhan's eyelids twitched and he spoke solemnly. "I don't know how my Yi clan offended you to actually make you act in such a way towards my Yi clan. I couldn't stand the sight of them." Yang Yi continued, "Understand." A ferocious expression flashed through Yi Zhan's eyes. According to rumor, the Tao Order is arrogant and overbearing. It really does deserve its reputation. Yang Yi smiled. My Tao Order loves to watch as others yearn to kill us yet are powerless to do so. The corners of Yi Zhan's mouth twitched while his profound energy surged madly. Suddenly, he gazed at the man who stood by Yi Yu's side. Duan Lang, if he doesn't die, then both my Yi clan and your broken saber villa will cease to exist. A trace of hesitance appeared in Duan Lang's eyes. After all, killing a member of the Tao Order carried huge implications. He hesitated for a short while before he gazed at Yang Yi. "Brother Yang, is there any room for reconciliation?" Yang Yi paid no attention to Duan Lang. He just gazed at Lu Sha and said, "You're a disciple of the Tao Order. What do you think?" Lu Sha had a slightly unsightly expression on his face. At this moment, he believed that Yang Yi was from the earthly path. Because Yang Ye's physical strength was truly too terrifying, and it wasn't inferior to a monarch realm demon beast. Moreover, Yang Yi seemed to have not used his true strength. Of course, he still intended to head back and investigate the matter. So, Lu Sha said, "Senior Brother Yang, perhaps we can." "You really bring shame to my Tao Order." Yang Yi suddenly interrupted Lu Sha. "You're a member of my Tao Order, so I can't kill you. But don't worry, I'll report your actions to the higher-ups of the mortal path." Lu Sha's heart shook, and he hurriedly said, "Senior Brother Yang, he's just an acquaintance of mine. How could I possibly act against a brother of my Tao Order for him? I wasn't aware of Senior Brother's true identity before this, and so I offended Senior Brother. Please do forgive me." The Tao Order was cruel to outsiders, but it was even more cruel to its own, especially when members of the sect fought each other. Just thinking about the punishment made him feel like just dying instead. Yang Yi said, "You want me to forgive you?" Lu Sha hurriedly said, "Senior Brother, please let me off." Yang Yi glanced at Yi Zhan's group and said, "Do you know what you must do?" Yi Zhan and the others turned slightly pale. Meanwhile, Duan Lang quickly spoke. "Brother Lu, all of this was a misunderstanding. If I knew that your senior brother was from the Tao Order, then I wouldn't have dared to show any disrespect to him no matter what. Brother Lu, it's too late now." Lu Sha took a deep breath while a dagger appeared in his grasp. After that, his figure vanished on the spot, and when his figure appeared next, it was actually not in front of Yi Zhan's group, it was in front of Yang Yi instead. At the same time, his dagger howled sharply through the air as it swept towards Yang Ye's throat. This scene had exceeded everyone's expectations. I, Lu Sha, refused to live a life of being restrained by the threats of another. Lu Sha's ferocious voice resounded as the dagger swept at Yang Yi. Yang Ye's strength was formidable indeed, and it was especially so for his physical body, because it was much stronger than many monarch realm demon beasts that Lu Sha had met in his lifetime. However, he suspected that Yang Yi was heavily injured, and he discerned this from two aspects. Firstly, if Yang Yi wasn't injured, then as an Exalt Realm expert, there would be no need for Yang Yi to travel by carriage. After all, he could just fly to his destination. But Yang Yi hadn't. Secondly, the disciples of the Tao Order were ruthless people, and they absolutely wouldn't leave potential troubles behind when they did anything. Yang Yi could instantly annihilate ordinary Monarch Realm experts, but he hadn't crushed the entire Yi clan in Skywind City, and he'd chosen to flee instead. So, Lu Sha was certain that Yang Yi was definitely heavily injured right now. As for the reason he attacked Yang Yi, it was very simple as well. He refused to believe that Yang Yi would spare him. Every single disciple of the Tao Order was a ruthless person, so he might die right away once Yang Yi recovered. He, Lu Sha, was a decisive person, so he attacked decisively once he thought all of this through. Yang Yi didn't dodge Lu Sha's sudden attack. Of course, he had no intention of doing so, nor did he try to block the dagger. He smashed his fist towards Lu Sha's stomach instead. Clang! Bang! Lu Sha's dagger struck Yang Ye's throat while Yang Ye's fist smashed against Lu Sha's stomach. Yang Yi remained motionless on the spot while Lu Sha spat out a mouthful of blood instead, and then his figure curled up as it flew backwards. However, he didn't fly far before he forcefully stopped himself. Yang Yi touched his throat, and there was a shallow mark there. However, his skin hadn't been penetrated. He raised his head and gazed at Lu Sha. "Looks like you intend to betray the sect." "Betray it?" Lu Sha spoke fiercely. "I dare not do that. Enmity has formed between us, and I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to sleep and eat in peace if I don't kill you now. Yi Zhan, Duan Lang, if he isn't killed today, then I, the Yi clan, and the Broken Saber Villa will be annihilated. So, stop holding back and fucking use your trump cards." Ferocious expressions instantly appeared in the eyes of Yizhan and the others when they heard him. Just as Lu Sha had said, they would be the ones to die if Yang Yi didn't. Not only would they die, the clans and sects which stood behind them would be annihilated as well. Grandpa Yi, you join forces with Brother Lu and deal with him. I'll go capture those 2 women from the Fan clan. As soon as he finished speaking, Duan Lang's figure shot swiftly towards the carriage. At the same time, both Yizhan and Lu Sha immediately charged at Yang Yi. OM! Suddenly, a sword howl shot into the sky, and then Duan Lang's head flew off into the air. Meanwhile, his body was still charging towards the carriage, and it shot forward for around 3 m before finally crashing to the ground. Duan Lang. Yi Yu was stunned for a moment, and then she ran madly towards Duan Lang's corpse. Yizhan and Lu Sha stopped moving, and they gazed at Yang Yi with astonishment. A sword had suddenly appeared in Yang Ye's grasp. Trash! Yang Yi waved his sword about and said, "All of you are trash." When he spoke up to this point, he gazed at Lu Sha and said, "Lu Sha, don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Kill Yizhan and compensate me with 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones, and I'll let bygones be bygones. After all, it's a disgrace for us to be killing each other, and I don't want those above me to have a bad impression of me. Of course, you can also join forces with him to kill me. Hee hee." As he finished speaking, there was a strange smile on Yang Ye's face, and that smile caused Lu Sha's heart to feel cold. "Yang Yi, I'll kill you." Meanwhile, Yi Yu suddenly charged at Yang Yi. "Yuer, come back here quickly. You aren't a match for him." Yizhan was horrified and was about to act. However, a ray of light flashed, and then Yi Yu's body was split into half at the waist. Fresh blood surged out from within her while her internal organs splattered all over the ground. It was beyond bloody. Yizhan's eyes almost split apart from the rage he felt, and the profound energy within him started surging madly. Meanwhile, Lu Sha was astounded, and he subconsciously took a step back. At this moment, he wouldn't believe it even if Yang Yi said that he wasn't from the Tao order. "Yang Yi, I'll chop you into pieces." Yizhan roared and was about to attack. But a ray of cold light suddenly attacked him from behind, and it caused his expression to change drastically. He forcefully twisted his body, tore through space, and flashed over 30 m away. When he looked back, he saw that a person was standing where he stood just an instant ago, and it was Lu Sha. "Lu Sha, what are you doing?" Yizhan was furious. "Are you really believing his nonsense? Is there something wrong with you? We'll definitely be able to eliminate him if we join forces." "Right, he's absolutely right." Yang Yi grinned. "Lu Shan, he's absolutely right. You can consider his offer." Lu Sha had an indeterminate expression on his face. A short while passed before he took a deep breath, and then he smiled to Yang Yi. "Senior brother Yang, you must be joking. We're both from the Tao order, so how could I possibly kill someone from my own sect? Since this old dog from the Yi clan wants to make us kill each other, his intentions are clearly malicious. Senior brother Yang, how about we join forces to kill him instead?" Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly while his face turned gloomy. "Lu Sha, stop playing tricks with me. I'll give you one last chance. If you don't kill him and hand over 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones, then I'll cripple you right now. Of course, you can try to join forces with him and kill me." Lu Sha had an extremely unsightly expression on his face. The desire deep within his heart was one that desired Yang Ye's death. However, he wasn't confident in his ability to kill Yang Yi, even if he joined forces with Yizhan. After all, every single member of the earthly path was an extraordinary expert, and surmounting their realm of cultivation to battle those of a higher realm was as simple as eating to them. "Lu Sha." Yizhan spoke hastily when he noticed Lu Sha's hesitance. "He's only at the Exalt realm while I'm a high-rank Monarch realm expert. I'm even only half a step away from the Half-Saint realm. As for you, you can surmount your own realm of cultivation to do battle. So he'll definitely die if we join forces." "Bullshit!" Lu Sha suddenly shouted at Yizhan. "You old dog! You truly do harbor malicious intent. You're actually trying to drive a wedge between us. I swear that I'll kill you today." Lu Sha's figure flashed while he spoke, and he shot towards Yizhan. In the end, he'd decided to kill Yizhan, because Yang Yi had truly been too calm and composed from the very beginning. Moreover, Yang Yi was looking at him like a cat that was looking at a mouse, and it was filled with ridicule. He didn't have the slightest confidence to face Yang Yi, especially when the baleful energy Yang Yi possessed was much stronger than his own. If he were to fight Yang Yi, then his slaughter intent would be completely useless. Conversely, while Yizhan was a high-rank Monarch Realm expert, he was still quite confident in his ability to kill Yizhan. After all, Monarch Realm experts who hadn't come from powerful sects were too weak to existences like him. Lu Sha, you fool. He's definitely injured. Even if we can't kill him, our joint forces would be sufficient to heavily injure him and force him to flee. You idiot! Yizhan cursed as he fought Lu Sha. At this moment, Lu Sha had made his decision. So, he completely ignored Yizhan's curses and just attacked like a madman. While Yizhan was at the high rank of the Monarch Realm, he didn't have much of an advantage against Lu Sha. However, the gap in their cultivations made it so that Lu Sha wasn't able to gain an advantage over him as well. So they were in a deadlock. Yang Yi wasn't standing by idly either. Watch out on your right. Dodge. Move forward. Stab towards the upper right. As the two of them fought, Yang Yi constantly told Lu Sha about Yizhan's flaws. In the beginning, Lu Sha was quite doubtful, but it didn't take long for him to realize that everything Yang Yi said was actually true. At this moment, he felt extremely fortunate to have made such a choice. As for Yizhan, he grew more and more horrified as the battle carried on. Because Lu Sha was able to anticipate his every move with Yang Ye's guidance, and it caused him to be completely suppressed. Moreover, there had been many moments where he'd almost suffered injuries. Yizhan glanced at Yang Yi, who stood calmly in the distance, and he instantly aroused the intent to retreat. While Lu Sha's cultivation was inferior to his, he couldn't do anything to Lu Sha in a short period of time as well. Of course, he wasn't afraid of Lu Sha. He was afraid of Yang Yi, who stood there while seeming to have no intention to join the battle. Yang Yi grew more and more mysterious and terrifying in his eyes. He's going to flee. Suddenly, Yang Yi said, if he succeeds, then you, Lu Sha, can go to hell. Yizhan's pupils constricted slightly when he heard Yang Yi. He hadn't imagined that even his intent to flee had actually been noticed by Yang Yi, and it horrified him. He didn't dare hesitate in the slightest. He immediately slapped Lu Sha back, and then pulled space apart, causing a huge hole to appear before him. Yizhan was about to enter the spatial rift and teleport away. However, Lu Sha suddenly shouted, "Shadow Strike!" As soon as he finished speaking, the smell of blood suddenly appeared here, and then Lu Sha's figure transformed into a ray of blood-red light that vanished on the spot. Hiss! At the instant that Yizhan was about to enter the spatial rift, a stream of blood suddenly shot out from his chest. However, the spatial rift closed at the same time and Yizhan was a few thousand kilometers away. Lu Shan supported himself on the ground with one of his knees, and his countenance was pale. The technique he executed earlier, Shadow Strike, was his strongest attack, and it had exhausted almost 90% of the profound energy within him. Swoosh! Suddenly, a ray of light flashed, and then Lu Sha's eyes opened wide. He asked, "Why?" "He got away." Yang Yi walked over to Lu Sha and continued, "Of course, you would suffer the same fate even if you killed him." Lu Sha asked the same question again. "Why?" "I honor my promises to some," Yang Yi said. "However, I prefer being shameless to some as well." As soon as Yang Yi finished speaking, Lu Sha's head dropped to the ground, and a fountain of blood sprayed from his neck. However, Yang Ye's expression suddenly changed drastically, and the ancient sheath instantly appeared in his grasp. At the same time, he sheathed his sword in it. "Who dares to kill a disciple of my Tao order?" A voice that sounded like a thunderclap resounded from the sky, and then a huge palm tore through space and clawed down forcefully at Yang Yi. "It's a half-saint at least." A cold glow flashed through Yang Ye's eyes as he said, "My ancient sword school." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi suddenly drew his sword. A sword howl shot up into the air, and it shook the entire sky. Accompanying the sword howl was a ray of sword energy that tore through space and smashed against the enormous palm. Hiss! It was instantly slashed into half. The ancient sword school. At the exact same moment when that spatial rift closed, a furious howl resounded from within it. Yang Yi moved his gaze away and gestured. The spatial ring on Lu Sha's hand instantly flew into his palm, and then he flashed into the carriage. As soon as he did, he repeatedly spat out numerous mouthfuls of blood, and it almost scared Fan Li and Fan Meng to death. Fan Meng was about to speak when Yang Yi flicked with his finger, and a strand of powerful wind struck the Pegasus outside, causing it to instantly transform into a ray of white light that vanished on the spot. Yang Yi, are you all right? Fan Meng was terrified to the point she started crying when she saw the blood that covered Yang Ye's mouth. Yang Yi shook his head lightly, and then he gazed at Fan Li. Do you have more extreme-grade energy stones? Fan Li waved her hand and a spatial ring appeared before Yang Yi. There are over 5,000 in there. When she spoke up to this point, she hesitated for a moment before producing another white pill and said, "This is a high-grade blood recovery pill. It's used to heal injuries, so it should be useful to you." Yang Yi didn't refuse it and immediately swallowed it. After that, he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. Actually, he was in an extremely dangerous situation earlier. If Lu Sha and Yizhan had joined forces just now, then he would at least have to pay a price that was a few times worse than the price he just paid in order to kill them. After all, Yizhan was a high-rank Monarch Realm expert. So, besides the mortal sword and Heavenrend, his other methods of attack like his sword energy and physical strength were utterly insufficient to kill him. As for Lu Sha, while he was only an Exalt Realm expert, his strength wasn't inferior to a Monarch Realm expert. So, if they were to join forces, then he would have to execute Heavenrend twice at the very least. Moreover, if they took precautions against him, then even Heavenrend might not be able to instantly kill them. After all, he wasn't able to overlap them right now. In the end, it was his wit that had allowed him to attain victory while paying such a small price. During this period where his strength had weakened, Yang Yi had gained understanding over a huge number of things. One of them was that he should really use his head sometimes, because if he used it well, then he could achieve numerous things with half the effort. If he hadn't instantly killed Yi Yu and Duan Lang earlier, and then deterred Lu Sha, the consequences would be unimaginable. After all, he had Fan Meng and Fan Li with him. He could run if he couldn't win the battle, but could they? If it was just Fan Li, then he wouldn't have interfered in the matters between the Yi clan and the Fan clan. But since Fan Meng was involved, he had no choice but to interfere. Actually, there wasn't a very deep and long relationship between him and Fan Meng. After all, he'd only known her for just half a month of time. However, when Fan Meng had blocked Fan Li's whip for him and jumped down to the swamp with him in her arms, he knew that he couldn't just stand by idly when things were related to her. Perhaps he would have to pay a certain price for helping her, but it might be able to save her entire life. After all, if he didn't save her, then the fate that awaited her was obvious. Utilizing Heavenrend against that half-saint from the Tao order caused problems to arise within him again. Not only had his meridians cracked apart even more, there even were cracks on his internal organs. Fortunately, he was at the Exalt realm now, and his physical body was much stronger than before. So it wasn't lethal to him for now. 2 hours later, and after he absorbed the medicinal pills and energy stones which he got from Fan Li, the injuries within him had finally been suppressed for now. Yang Yi slowly opened his eyes. As soon as he did, he noticed both Fan Li and Fan Meng squatting before him while staring at him. Fan Meng was shocked when she saw Yang Yi open his eyes, and she asked in a slightly nervous tone, Are you all right? Yang Yi shook his head and said, I'm fine for now. Both of them instantly heaved sighs of relief. I'm sorry, Fan Li suddenly said. It was something between my Fan clan and the Yi clan, yet you were dragged into it. Yang Yi shook his head. He knew that he was courting death a little by interfering in the Fan clan's business while he was in such a state. However, could he just watch as that little girl, Fan Meng, fall into the fire pit that's the Yi clan? He couldn't. Moreover, He really didn't take the Yi clan and Broken Saber Villa seriously. Yang Yi suddenly asked, "Do you know where Lu Wanner is?" His goal was to find Lu Wanner, because if he did, then he might be able to find out about a Nanjing, Xiao Yushi, and the others' whereabouts. The Sword Emperor, Lu Wanner? Fan Li had a trace of surprise in her eyes. "You, aren't you Taoist Gu?" She seemed to have thought of something when she spoke up to this point, and there was astonishment in her eyes. At this moment, she understood that Yang Yi wasn't a disciple of the ancient sword school, and he was just pretending to be one. Fan Li's face turned ghastly pale when she thought up to this point. Yang Yi stated, "Don't worry, I'll leave once I've taken both of you to somewhere sage. I won't allow both of you to be dragged down with me." Even though he didn't have a good idea of the ancient sword school's strength and didn't know how terrifying it was, based on his current knowledge, it was definitely an enormous power that was absolutely not something he could fight right now. Fan Li shook her head and said, "If it wasn't for you, then both Little Meng and I would have become toys for the Yi clan by now. I know that I really was very selfish in the past, you really hate me, and you wouldn't have interfered in the business of my fan clan and the Yi clan if it wasn't for Little Meng. All I want to say is that you saved both our lives. So, no matter how bad it is, we're still willing to face it with you." Yang Yi glanced at Fan Li. He hadn't expected that this selfish woman before him would actually speak such words. In his opinion, once she found out that he was pretending to be a disciple of the ancient sword school, then she should have immediately taken Fan Meng with her and stay away from him. Fan Li suddenly asked, "You intend to go look for Lu Wanner?" Yang Yi nodded. Fan Li fell silent for a short while, and then she said, "It's quite difficult." Yang Yi frowned. "Why?" She spoke in a low voice. "Lu Wanner should be in the headquarters of the ancient sword school, and it's at least over 500,000 kilometers away from here. We would have to go through over a dozen mountain ranges in order to get there, and there'll definitely be formidable demon beasts on these mountain range. There might even be demon commanders amongst them. In short, it'll definitely be an extremely dangerous journey. 500,000 kilometers. Yang Yi frowned. If it was in the past, then such a distance would be nothing to him, and he could traverse it on his sword in just half a month of time. Yet now, not to mention traveling on his sword, he didn't even dare to try and fly for a while. After all, it consumed a huge amount of profound energy. On the other hand, if he relied solely upon the carriage, then not to mention the time it would take, even their safety would be a huge problem. "I have an idea," Fan Li suddenly said. Silver rank sects usually have teleportation formations. While it's impossible for there to be any teleportation formations around here that can transport someone 500,000 kilometers away. However, we can teleport to the large cities, and then utilize the teleportation formations there. Yang Yi quickly asked, "Where can I find one?" "Stellar Sky City," Fan Li continued. "It has a teleportation formation that can teleport us to Martial Enlightenment City that's 50,000 kilometers away. But Stellar Sky City is probably facing quite a bit of trouble right now. According to the information I received, the Beastmaster sect joined forces with Broken Saber Villa and another silver rank sect to attack Stellar Sky City. If it's destroyed, then..." Yang Yi understood what she intended to say. If it was destroyed, then he would be walking into a trap if he went there. After all, there was quite a bit of enmity between him and both the Beastmaster sect and Broken Saber Villa. "We're heading to Stellar Sky City." In the end, Yang Yi decided to go there because he didn't want to take a huge circle. Fan Li glanced at him before she nodded. After their destination was decided, Fan Li started to guide the carriage because she knew where Stellar Sky City was. In the carriage, Fan Meng had fallen asleep. After all, she hadn't slept well for the last few days because of the matter with the Yi clan. Yang Yi withdrew Lu Sha's spatial ring, and it didn't take him too long to break open the spiritual brand on it. He was overjoyed when he laid eyes on its contents because there were actually almost 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones within it. Besides that, there were 3 mid-grade Dao rank daggers. While he was a sword cultivator, it didn't represent that he couldn't use daggers. After all, daggers were the best weapon to take an opponent by surprise during close-quarters combat. Yang Yi noticed a scroll within it as well, and he was slightly stunned when he opened it up. Because it was actually a Dao rank technique, and it was even one at the high grade. Shadow Strike, condensation of baleful energy and slaughter intent. Yang Yi gradually revealed a smile as he looked over its description, because he noticed that it really suited him. Most importantly, it didn't require any profound energy. All it needed was baleful energy and slaughter intent. Moreover, the stronger one's baleful energy and slaughter intent were, the stronger it would be. As for the difficulty to cultivate it successfully, perhaps it was very difficult for others because it was very difficult to control baleful energy and slaughter intent. After all, the slightest mistake might cause the user to suffer backlash. However, Yang Yi didn't have to worry about that at all, because he possessed the enlightened sword heart. Moreover, his attainments in the sword Dao far exceeded his attainments in the Dao of slaughter. So, unless he truly killed too many one day, and it was to the point his enlightened sword heart couldn't suppress it any longer, then he might suffer backlash from utilizing this technique. But for now, it was far from that. It took less than 4 hours for Yang Yi to master the Shadow Strike technique, and he instantly became much more confident once he had this Dao rank technique which didn't need profound energy to be utilized. Suddenly, the carriage stopped moving. Yang Yi frowned and left it. Meanwhile, Fanli was pointing ahead as she said, "Look, look." Her voice was trembling slightly. Yang Yi looked over and saw 3 pitch-black coffins lying on an empty expanse of the ground not too far away from him. All 3 coffins were laid down horizontally and just happened to obstruct their path. The Dao orders Hell's coffin. Fan Li's face had instantly turned ghastly pale when she saw those coffins, and she even subconsciously grabbed Yang Ye's sleeve with her left hand. "What is that?" Yang Yi sized up the surroundings, and a slightly cold smile curled up on the corners of his mouth. Fan Li's eyes were closed tightly, while her left hand held tightly onto Yang Ye's sleeve. "Yang Yi, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. It was only my fan clan's business, but you've been dragged into it as well. I'm truly sorry. Don't worry, even if you die, both Little Meng and I will accompany you in death." Yang Yi was slightly surprised. He turned around to look at Fan Li, and he noticed that her eyes were filled with terror, despair, and a trace of resolve. Yang Yi frowned and said, "Is there something about these coffins?" She explained while despair filled her eyes. "The Hell's coffin of the Dao order doesn't block the path ahead. It blocks the path to life. Once the Dao order uses it, then it proves that the person being obstructed must die. At such a time, the person who's being obstructed has 2 choices. The first is to take his or her own life and enter the coffin. In that way, the enmity would be resolved. The second would be to destroy the coffins. Once that was done, it represents that this enmity will only be resolved when one side dies." When she spoke up to this point, she suddenly frowned. Based on the Dao order style, there's entirely no need to utilize Hell's coffin if they want to kill us. What are they worried about? Suddenly, she gazed at him and said, "I understand now. They've taken you to be a disciple of the ancient sword school. So, they only want to kill you and not enter into conflict with the ancient sword school." The Dao order was very overbearing in Pine Prefecture, and it was very cruel as well. However, the ancient sword school wasn't weak at all. Moreover, all its disciples were sword cultivators who'd comprehended sword intent. So, the Dao order did hold some fear towards the ancient sword school. Similarly, the ancient sword school feared the Dao order a little as well. "A disciple of the ancient sword school?" Yang Yi shook his head. "Looks like that expert I repulsed earlier really took me to be a disciple of the ancient sword school." As for why the Dao order hadn't sent someone to just kill him, it wasn't because the Dao order was worried about him, it was worried about the ancient sword school. However, he was very well aware that he didn't belong to the ancient sword school. So, it was utterly impossible for him to seek help from the ancient sword school. Fan Li understood that as well, and that was why despair still filled her eyes. Yang Yi leaped off the carriage and walked towards the coffins. Fan Li suddenly shouted, "Yang Yi!" Yang Yi turned around to look at her, and then she said, You really intend to do that?" Her voice was trembling slightly. Yang Yi smiled and said, Don't tell me you want me to take my own life and fit myself into a coffin? As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia turned around and flashed over to the coffins. He said, "Even the heavens weren't able to kill me, so you think you can obstruct my path? Dream on." As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia kicked the coffin with his right leg. Bang! 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 All three coffins instantly transformed into powder. Hee hee hee. Gloomy laughter resounded abruptly, and then a man in a red robe suddenly appeared here. Not only was his clothes red in color, even his hair and eyeballs were scarlet red. There were two scarlet-red sabers hanging on his sides. The sabers were very long. They were over 1 m long, and they didn't have a sheath. After he arrived here, a pungent smell of blood instantly suffused the surroundings. The disciples of the ancient sword school have been growing more and more arrogant in the past few years. Even a tiny little Exalt Realm cultivator actually dares to destroy my Tao Order's Hell's Coffin? The red-robed man spoke slowly, and his voice sounded like he was holding a mouthful of spit and sounded quite hoarse. "I'm really curious about someone," Xianxia said. "Why do the members of the Tao Order love to wear red robes?" The red-robed man said, "Are you mocking me? The Tao Order has 3 paths: the heavenly path, earthly path, and mortal path. Each of these paths possess varying strengths, and so their dressing is different as well. The heavenly path's members wear white robes, the earthly path's members wear black robes, and the mortal path's members wear red robes. He's wearing a red robe, so he's from the mortal path," Fan Li explained. She knew about Xianxia's situation, so while she didn't know who exactly Xianxia was, she knew one thing, and it was that everything within Pine Prefecture was unfamiliar to Xianxia. According to her estimations, Xianxia might not even be someone from Pine Prefecture. "So that's why." Xianxia nodded and said, "No wonder that black-robed woman from before was much stronger than Wuxia. So she was from the earthly path. A woman who wore a black robe?" The red-robed man was shocked. You've met someone from the earthly path?" Xianxia replied, "I did. She was very strong. Right, she was much stronger than both you and that fellow Wuxia. Especially her movement technique. Right, I still remember it. It seemed to be called Shadow Flash. It really was very swift." There was shock in the red-robed man's eyes as he said, You've actually met Xianxia." "Not only did I meet her, I almost killed her." Xianxia walked slowly towards the red-robed man while he spoke. "I'm really quite puzzled. Both you and Wuxia are from the mortal path. Even he was killed by me, so why has the Tao Order still sent someone from the mortal path? Are you here to give your treasures away to me?" As he spoke, Xianxia's gaze descended onto the red-robed man's spatial ring, and he said, "How many extreme-grade energy stones have you brought with you?" Xianxia wasn't one who liked to waste his breath. If he did things according to his character, then he would absolutely not waste his breath on the red-robed man. The reason he was doing it now was that he was striking a psychological blow against the red-robed man. If fear or terror were to arise in a person's heart, then the strength that person could summon would definitely be greatly reduced. Of course, the reason he was doing this was mainly because of his current strength. If he possessed his past strength, then there would naturally be no need for him to play such tricks. After all, just a swing of his sword would be sufficient. Yet now, he had to try his best to preserve his strength. The ancient sword school has 3 geniuses in the Exalt realm. Which one are you? The red-robed man stared fixedly at Xianxia while a solemn expression filled his eyes. Xianxia didn't speak, and he just continued walking towards the man. However, he walked very slowly this time. But every single step he took caused the ground to tremble violently. The red-robed man was astounded again when he witnessed this scene. As Xianxia took step after step towards the red-robed man, the mental defenses of the red-robed man was crumbling bit by bit. Actually, after he found out that Xianxia had met someone from the earthly path, he'd aroused the intent to retreat. However, he couldn't do that because he'd brought the Hell's Coffin here, and he was representing the honor of the Tao Order right now. He could die, but the Tao Order couldn't be allowed to lose face. Otherwise, he would suffer a fate worse than death. The red-robed man took a deep breath as his right hand grabbed one of the sabers on his waist. They say the disciples of the ancient sword school are formidable in one-on-one battles. Allow me to experience it for myself today. As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his saber, and a blood-red ray of light instantly slashed down towards Yang Yi. Yang Yi stopped moving. He smashed his fist forward, and then the blood-red ray of light was instantly dispersed. At the same time, Yang Yi had arrived before the red-robed man, causing the red-robed man's pupils to constrict and immediately swing the saber on the left side of his waist. However, it had only just been swung when Yang Ye's fist smashed it into pieces. After that, Yang Ye's fist continued forward and shot towards the red-robed man's chest. Meanwhile, the red-robed man suddenly opened his mouth, and then a tiny blade shot out from within his mouth. It instantly struck Yang Ye's chest, but Yang Ye's fist smashed against his chest as well. Bang! The red-robed man spat out numerous mouthfuls of blood while his figure was blasted flying. At the same time, Yang Yi took a few steps back as well. Yang Yi looked down and saw a blood-red mark on his chest. Moreover, blood was seeping out slowly from there. His defenses had been penetrated. Yang Yi raised his head again and looked at the red-robed man. At this moment, he was still lying on the ground. Yang Yi merely glanced at him before he gestured with his right hand, and then the red-robed man's spatial ring flew over into his grasp. After that, he turned around and walked towards the carriage. Fan Li reminded, He seems to still be alive. Just a moment longer. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi entered the carriage. Fan Li shot her gaze towards the red-robed man once more, and she saw his body twitching violently. It didn't take long for the red-robed man to go completely still. She withdrew her gaze, turned around, and walked into the carriage. Yang Yi sat cross-legged in the carriage with his eyes closed, and he was recalling what happened earlier. He hadn't expected the red-robed man to be able to penetrate his defenses. That final attack of the red-robed man was extremely powerful, and if his physical strength hadn't recovered to the monarch realm, then just that attack would have been sufficient to instantly kill him, because it had been on the verge of entering his body, but it hadn't been able to slice through his bones. Looks like I have to be more careful from now on. Yang Yi opened his eyes, and his gaze descended onto the spatial ring in his grasp. He'd gained quite a bit this time. The red-robed man's spatial ring actually had over 10,000 extreme-grade energy stones within it. Coupled with the energy stones he obtained from Wuxia, he had almost 20,000 extreme-grade energy stones now. After that, all Yang Yi did was absorb energy stones like a madman. He was in quite a bad situation right now, and he had to attain the monarch realm in order to have the slightest chance at keeping himself alive. Fan Li knew Yang Yi was cultivating when she saw him start eating extreme-grade energy stones again. She sat by the side of Fan Meng, who was still in deep sleep, and softly stroked Fan Meng's hair while a trace of sorrow lingered in her eyes. While Yang Yi had killed that red-robed man from the Tao Order, she knew that it wasn't the end, and it was only the beginning. The Tao Order had lost 2 disciples in succession, and its Hell's Coffin had even been destroyed. Such an incident hadn't occurred in Pine Prefecture for a very long time, especially when it was an Exalt Realm sword cultivator of the ancient sword school who'd killed them. Moreover, that same sword cultivator had destroyed the Tao Order's Hell's Coffin. That was absolutely intolerable to the Tao Order, because it was equivalent to the ancient sword school slapping the Tao Order in the face. So, some of the Tao Order's higher-ups were alarmed by it. However, the Tao Order didn't dispatch its experts right away, because if it did send a half-saint or even a saint after Yang Yi, then the Tao Order would have lost even if it could kill Yang Yi. So, the Tao Order issued its Tao command. As soon as it was issued, practically every single disciple of the Tao Order who was at the Exalt Realm had set out to kill Yang Yi. Meanwhile, the ancient sword school didn't stand by idly as well. After it found out that one of its disciples had killed members of the Tao Order, its higher-ups were shocked. After all, it was no trivial matter. If the 2 platinum ranks were to fight to the death, then it would only benefit others. So, the higher-ups of the ancient sword school immediately ordered that disciple called Yang Yi to return to the ancient sword school. But in the end, they noticed that the ancient sword school didn't have such a disciple.